Welcome to another episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel the Law Holowale. I have with me today Honorable Judge David Young. He has been on the bench for over 11 years, I
Eight
believe,
years.
since
8 years.
8 years. Oh,
8 years.
okay. He got on the bench since 2011. He has served as a judge on two separate courts, the Court of Common Pleas, which is he's currently a judge on that court now, and he started off as a judge on the Franklin County Municipal Court. It's been a trial attorney, someone who has tried over 75 jury trials. If you are an attorney, that is a huge accomplishment. But I'm not gonna give you all his credentials because I know he's capable of doing that himself. So let me ask you, welcome to the show, Judge Young.
Well,
Can you please tell our audience about you?
thank you so much for having me on. It's a
Thank you for coming.
great thing that you're doing, educating the legal or educating the community, and it's an honor to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you please tell the audience about yourself?
Well, I'm a married father of two children. I graduated from Miami University and Oxford, Ohio, with a double major, accounting and finance. I went to the University of Washington University in St. Louis, where I received my law degree. After law school, I moved to Dayton for a year, worked at a large law firm called Smith and Snocki. After Smith and Snocki, I moved out to Los Angeles, California. I worked at a big firm called Loeb and Loeb, which is the third oldest law firm in Los Angeles. After I was there for a little bit, I moved to a venture capital firm called Reardon and McKinsey, and did transactional work. And one of the things, Emmanuel, transactional work, you don't interact with people as much. And I'm more of a people person. So I wanted to get into litigation and do trial work. So I took a course at the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office that taught various lawyers from big firms that have no opportunity to try cases because of the dockets out in California. So they allowed me to be deputized as a district attorney and allowed me to try criminal cases. I fell in love with trying criminal cases. I moved back to Franklin County, Columbus. I worked at the prosecutor's office for a couple of years, and I was in private practice essentially up until 2011. So for 20 plus years, representing all the individuals in both criminal and civil litigations.
How were you able to move from Los Angeles to Columbus, Ohio? Such a huge difference in size
It
and
is,
demography. Yeah.
but the good thing is my wife is from California. That was a bigger change for her to move over to Columbus than for me. I'm originally from Dayton area, and I knew I ultimately wanted to open up my own practice. And to do so in Los Angeles, you have to make a tremendous amount of money to live where you want to live. And I knew that I had family that lived in Columbus. My uncle was a big trial lawyer at one of the big firms, Squire Sanders here. So I thought this would be a better place to open up my practice.
And you were able to come into town and start your own practice.
Yeah.
How were you able also to just transition from working for a big firm, working for the government to being on your own? It
It,
takes a
it,
lot of confidence.
well, it's like it's exciting. It's long hours. I mean, there's Saturdays, Sundays, late nights. I had kids, and I missed a lot of their things is I'm having to work hard. And my father said, "Good things happen to good people that work hard." So
Mm.
we did that, and also one of the hardest things was when I first ran for judge and being in private practice. That's very difficult to do. And one of the other things I've got to tell you, I'm licensed in the state of California, the state of Florida, and Washington, D.C. My law license and all those. So it was exciting to go, and as you are, I don't know how many people you have in your firm, but it's exciting.
Yes.
And it's a big change going from private practice to
Yes.
back to government.
Yes. Good things happens to good people when you work hard. Yeah. Yesterday we had some kind of earthquake when it comes to the legal world. We witnessed the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who happens to be the second female or woman to ever be on the highest court in the U.S. Supreme Court. She was a stalwart of gender equality, racial equity, and the gatekeeper of freedom to a lot of minorities. So her death has opened, a gap right now in the court, which has led to another debate. So debate is what is going to happen next. Will the Republican-led Senate fill a seat before the next president or is elected, or will they leave it open until next year? So this wouldn't have been an unimportant question if not but for what happened in 2016 after Antonin Justice Scalia died, and President Obama at the time nominated Merrick Garland.
Mhm.
And it took about, I think he died maybe about 10 months to the election, and the then Republican-led Senate created a new rule that we can vote through a new judge or justice in an election year. So, what do you think about the legacy of Justice Ginsburg and the gaping hole that she has left in the Supreme Court?
Oh, Justice Ginsburg clearly was a hero. She was a trailblazer. She was as tough as nails. She tried so hard to fight to make it through. From what I've been reading today, it's just she was a very strong and outstanding American hero. There's no question as to that. And I'm licensed in the United States Supreme Court. Unfortunately, I was never able to argue a case up there. And as for what the Republican-led government's going to do, we all assume I would assume they are going to replace the judge, whether they get it done before November 3rd or even if they lose the Senate, they'll have a judge for our president to put in I would assume into the Supreme Court.
Yeah, if the court is filled, let's say even before the election or after the election with another conservative, what do you think is going to happen to most of these rights that a kind of a balanced court has been able to sustain? Like LGBTQ rights, affirmative action, civil rights, and reproductive rights. What do you think is the prospect for sustaining those rights?
One of the things, and from my experience, is you don't really know as a judge. I've seen some of the most, what I would think, conservative judges, Republican judges down at, I only know my court is, some of the best judges were Republican conservative judges, Dan Hogan for one. And then on the other side, you can have a very liberal judge who is not a very good judge. And once you take the oath of office as a judge, there are certain laws and certain things that I disagree with, but I have to follow the law. And you would hope that as whoever is selected, whether by a President-elect Biden or current President Trump, that they would pick someone who's intelligent and would take the oath of office seriously. So I'm not sure that necessarily all those rights they could be in danger, no question. And so that's why when I was out this morning campaigning, I was telling all of these people, we had a drive-through pickup sign downtown Columbus, and everyone, we had lines down the street, and I just was telling everyone it is extremely important to vote, and especially this year, in all my conversations with the people, that it's extremely important to vote.
Yeah. We have had several pivotal elections, but this one is highly very important. Even let's assume that the Republican-led Senate decide not to push through the agenda of, voting for a new judge before the elections. So it
Mm-hmm.
is very highly important that people go out there to at least make their own choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, the other issue that came up yesterday, I was reading the Dispatch, which is the Columbus Dispatch, about the Ohio Association of Prosecutors refusing to participate in a joint task force set up by the Ohio Supreme Court to figure out how to at least avoid issues of wrongful convictions and prosecutions. So to me, with the numbers that we have, according to the National Registry of Exonerations, we have 84 people who have been wrongfully convicted in Ohio since 1989, including 32 people convicted of murder and 8 on death row. So what do you think about the idea of a wrongful conviction prevention task force?
I would fully support it, because if people are wrongfully convicted, whether anywhere, anytime, any place, they should be released. And if there is prosecutorial misconduct, it should be known if there's evidence. Um, and those are just the number of people that we know of. I routinely get motions from people, um, for or motions to try and set aside pleas and verdicts, and some of 20, 30 years old. So I see it in real. There's not a lot I can do as a city judge on whatever particular case, but there is I'm very cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of people that are probably wrongfully convicted. And I'm not saying the vast majority of them, but I that's the reason it's important to vote for judges, and it's important because it's my job as a judge is to ensure that a criminal defendant is given all of his constitutional rights, and that he has and will be able to exercise his rights in my courtroom, especially.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it necessary to have prosecutors be part of this task force because they are the gatekeepers, or they're on the front line of these issues? Because most cases wouldn't even make it to you or to the jurors without the prosecutors bringing it,
That's
and
correct.
it wouldn't even make it to convictions without them trying it.
I,
Because
I I would agree with you as to that, but I did not read the article this morning, so I don't know what the task force is comprised of, and what their positions are. But you would think they would want to be involved in it, because they take a oath to follow, that they should do the right thing all the time. There's a certain saying in that a prosecutor in uh, the rules of ethics, that they're not just to convict if they are to do what's the right thing. And you would think being a part of a task force to free or exonerate wrongfully convicted people, like that, you would think they would want to be a part of that.
I do agree with you. I think the Politicization of almost everything has caused a lot of friction, and it's hard to get people to work together these days. Even, everything is now politics. And since the beginning of the pandemic and then the shutdown, there have been a lot of changes in the justice system. The way you go to court, the way you litigate, the way you try cases, you know, even the way you file motions. Some courts have really gone electronic. You don't have to go to the clerk of court and file papers anymore. So, what changes have you put in place for your own court?
There has been tremendous changes. When the coronavirus essentially the restrictions went into place around early March 12th, and the Chief Justice, Maureen O'Connor, suspended essentially all the criminal defendants' rights. Did until I think it was July 30th. For the speedy trial rights. But in my court in particular, what we're doing down in Franklin County Court of Common Pleas is we have 4 judges per floor. And so I'm in courtroom 7A. So I will be in trial and have juror availability next week. But the following week, I will not be in session, and the courtroom 7B will be in session. The reason we're doing that is to try and prevent the number of people that are congregating out in the hallway awaiting to come into the courthouse. Surprisingly, I've instructed the jurors every Monday morning. The judge goes down to give instructions and to introduce the jurors, introduce the judges to the jurors. And surprisingly, we're getting about 100 to 120 people coming down for jury service. So we're available to do jury trials. And but we want to. Each courtroom has different plexiglass to protect everybody from everybody else. I'm not as some judges have each individual juror seat surrounded by plexiglass. So you have all 12. I guess we can only fit 12 in the jury box, as opposed to 16 before. We require everyone to make masks, take whatever precautions we can do necessarily. I know in Franklin County, we've done about 5 or 6 trials since really the 30th. They seem to go well. I have not tried one, but I know I have a lot of trials in September and in October coming up. It will be definite trials. We obviously do 100% electronic filing. The jury selection is going to be, we'll probably bring 12 into the jury box, and then we'll have the other 12 wait, and then we'll replace that 12 with the other 12 to bring them in, try and minimize contact. We're not allowing, or we're not having jurors go back. We have a separate jury room. So we'll be using for their deliberations the other judges' courtroom in order for them to adequately social safe distance with each other. We have hand sanitizers and everything down there. We require masks before you get into the building. We get a daily report of any person that's associated with the Justice Department or justice system, whether they're the sheriffs or inmates, and anyone that has contracted COVID-19. That includes clerk of courts, the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, the actual court, probation department, and that goes over to the domestic relations court, and everything that we can possibly do, and see if you have had any contact with that one person. I know not on my floor, but on the floor below me, a person had contracted COVID, and they were all tracing and quarantining whomever. So, but it's been a huge change. And there's been some good out of it that's come out of it. What we've been discovering is in order for us to handle all of our civil cases, we're doing all of our pre-trials, final pre-trials, status conferences by Zoom. And when we do that, I've found a lot of the civil lawyers have really enjoyed that because they don't have to drive all the way down to the courthouse, pay for parking, come into the courthouse and have a 15-minute hearing or requesting a continuance to a trial, and so they can work more efficiently. I think the court, I can do, 6 or 7 status conferences, by Zoom. You allot 30 minutes for each call. You usually only go 5 or 10 or 15 at most. And then otherwise, if you have discovery disputes, then if you want to come down to the courthouse, we're open, but you may want to resolve it outside of coming down here.
What has been the reactions of jurors to these changes, having to come to court and being summoned because mostly they don't want to be there? What has been their reactions?
They've actually, probably some of them wanted to get out of the house if they were completely quarantined. There's obviously some nervousness and tension. When I go down there, we've got them spread out. Everyone's got a mask. But I've spoke with the judges that have done the jury trials, and they said that people were very impressed with the precautions that were taken, and we're glad they did what they did.
So are spectators allowed in the courtrooms now?
Or what?
Spectators, people who just want to come and see cases.
We're open, but we have
welcome.
Yeah, not welcome. they are welcome, but but it's the limited seating area behind the partitions is not that great to accommodate a lot of people to come and watch, but we still are running public courtrooms, so anybody's more than willing to come down.
Okay, so they can come and see cases. What if a party let's say you have a trial that is supposed to go forward on Monday, can a party request to appear by video or by Zoom, even though it's supposed to be a hearing, a courtroom hearing? Will you allow that?
I would allow people, expert witnesses. For instance, I have a big medical malpractice case set for October, in the middle of October, and I ruled that the experts can be, if they want to be by Zoom, they can be by Zoom, or they can just do the videotape the testimony and play it for the jurors. But given that one of the doctors was from New York, if he came to Ohio, he was also an older gentleman. If he came to Ohio, he would have to quarantine when he went back to New York for 14 days. I don't know what the restrictions are for the doctor. We had a doctor in Washington, D.C., and they didn't want to drive. Older individuals didn't want to get on a plane and didn't want to drive all the way from New York City to Columbus. So I've allowed those witnesses to testify via Zoom, but generally we will accommodate. But for criminal cases, unless you're doing an expert in a criminal case, every people will come in live, and we're safe enough. From the first juror, we don't have anyone sitting the first juror to the left of the witness because that gives us enough distance. Prosecutors and defense lawyers are required to remain at the lectern, which we'll set up sufficiently distance from everyone. But if it's an out of state expert, I would allow by Zoom, no question.
You're also running for re-election this year. What is the difference between your campaign this year and 6 years ago and prior years?
Well, I first ran in 2011 and also in 2014. The difference between 2011 and 2014 was it was astronomical. The amount of candidate nights you would go to all over the place, and which is good. I mean, a lot of people don't know that much about judges, but this year in 2014, I did 13 parades. This year we didn't do any, and so we're having a very difficult time trying to interact with to try and speak to voters and get out and let people know what you're doing. And because they don't on the ballot, they don't say Judge David Young. They just have David Young, and I'm running against whoever I'm running against. But it's been very difficult. Very difficult to do fundraisers because everyone adheres to Governor DeWine's. I mean, you go to a restaurant, can I have a fundraiser here? They're like, no, you can't be around more than 10 people. And so we're having the inability to do that, but we're trying to do the best we can.
So for people watching you right now, I know you might want to convince them to vote for you. What are those things that you want them to know so that they can retain you as judge of that court of common pleas? Tell them some of the things you do on the court, what your roles are, and why they should retain you.
The key point of re-electing me I've had a tremendous amount of experience. I've practiced transactional law. I've practiced litigated both as a prosecutor and a defense counsel, personal injury. And when you're dealing with this virus and you're dealing the effects on the court, I think you need someone that is extremely experienced in how to handle these type of situations. I have been highly recommended by the Columbus Bar Association in 2011, 2014, and I got the highly recommended last week. I have been highly recommended by the Central Ohio, which is the COAJ, which is the trial lawyers here in Franklin County. I've been endorsed by the Democratic Party. I've been endorsed by the Building Trades. I've been endorsed by the firefighters. I've been endorsed by ASME. I've been endorsed by OSHA or OCEA and a teachers organization. So I've been experienced. I've tried well over 100 cases now, both as a judge, prosecutor, and as a defense lawyer. I've always remained active in the community. I every year teach elementary students over at Darbywood Elementary over on the west side of Columbus. I've taught during the opioid epidemic. I would speak to the high school students about that, middle school students about the Bill of Rights. I'd like to get out. I was a board member of the Alvis 180 house, the halfway house. I have been involved in my church, and I have received performance reviews by all my peers. One of the highest rated judges in Franklin County every year that I've been rated in that. And I want to continue serving, and I enjoy serving the citizens of Franklin County, and look forward to doing so in the future.
So how have you been able to translate some of your experience as a prosecutor, as a transactional attorney, and as a trial attorney? How have you been able to translate that to your work on the bench? And
I,
how is that to the benefit of the people of Franklin County?
it's tremendous that you can see both sides. I've also had the good fortune to have traveled all around the world. I've seen courts in different countries. I've seen judicial systems in different countries. I've been all over the world, and I've seen how other countries and how their judiciaries work. And I believe we have the best judicial system there is in the world. And I you need an experienced judge down there, a fair and honest judge, someone that's seen. As a criminal defense lawyer, you've been to the neighborhoods where certain people live. You've gone to the jail to interview the defendants. As a prosecutor, you've spoken to the victims who have been the victims of the crime or whatever. And so you need these type of whole level experiences to be a better judge. If you A lot of judges that come directly from the prosecutor's office, and they've only seen one side of the case, and they can turn out to be wonderful judges. I'm not one way or another, but I think having a broader experience allows me to better serve the citizens of Franklin County.
And you have had that broader experience. Can you tell us about one or two cases that you have decided that is so important that people should consider when deciding to retain you?
One or two cases. The really the cases when I was the very first case, when I was a defense lawyer, one of my first trials, I had a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid that was was charged with breaking into a house with two other individuals, hogtying two elderly couples with ski masks on, and robbing them of all kinds of things. And my client, who was 18 or 19, had never been charged with even a traffic ticket. And it's not typically that you begin doing a home invasion as your first criminal adventure. And the two other individuals that were with him were career criminals, were older, having gone to prison a number of times. And the prosecutor wanted this person to tell what about the other two, and they were offering him an outstanding offer, a deal. And he's like, I didn't do it. I'm like, if you get convicted of this, you can go to prison for the rest of your life. And he's like, well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And I'm like, oh my God, one of my first cases. I have a 19-year-old kid that graduated from high school, and so we went to trial. And in the middle of the trial, I'm staying up at night. If I make a mistake, this person's going to spend the rest of their life in jail. And they wheeled in one of the elderly individuals in a wheelchair, and I obviously couldn't get on the witness stand. And the prosecutor asked, "You see the person that broke into your house in court?" And she points at my client, and says, "That's the son of a gun that did this." I'm like, you in court, you don't react to those kind of things. And I looked to see how my client was reacting, and he was perspiring profusely. He was all nervous. So she left, and and then my client stopped showing up at court because she identified him. So I'm like, oh my God, I lost all this pain, suffering. I was so concerned about him. And when it turned out he was actually involved in the affair, we eventually got him back to court, and he did what he was supposed to do. But it was one of the experiences that you learn. Sometimes your clients may not be honest with you, and but that's part of being a judge and lawyer, for that matter, like you.
Um, Thank you for that answer. So let me ask you this, because a lot of people out there are non lawyers and they're wondering which court you're running for. What do they do in that court? Can you educate them as to what you do and the kind of cases you handle on the Court of Common Pleas?
Yes, I am a Court of Common Pleas judge. We have all civil matters above 15,000, all felony matters, and in particular in Franklin County in Columbus, we have the busiest common pleas court in the state. And the reason being is we have all of the government agencies, Attorney General, workers' comp, workers' compensation fraud, and every state government is located in Franklin County, and all of the policing agents of all of those don't want to go to Toledo if they've had insurance fraud or workers' compensation fraud in Cleveland. So they file the indictment in Franklin County and require every people to come down here to litigate all those matters. I do anything from aggravated murder, death penalty cases to big medical malpractice cases to PUCO cases. And when I first took the bench, they like, one of my first cases was a PUCO case. I'm like, what is PUCO? And and my staff attorney's like, it's the Public Utility Company of Ohio. And I'm like, why do I have a case? Well, one of the telephone poles had fallen on a car when someone was in it, so they're suing the utility for having the not having the proper telephone pole. So those, we get all the government agencies work in Franklin County. So I handle everything from an aggravated murder to a contract dispute.
So otherwise, you handle all the big cases that is beyond $15,000 and all the huge felony criminal cases.
And we're the initial trial court. If somebody they would go to the appellate court, which oversees our court, and then you would have the Ohio Supreme Court would be the following, or the ultimate arbiter.
Thank you. So, what's your message to people out there who feel like their vote wouldn't count, or why should I bother voting for a judge?
It is extremely important to vote all the way down the ballot. There's a lot of resources. Go to the League of Women Voters. They have a guideline where you'll be able to do your own research on judges. Go to the Supreme Court, Ohio Supreme Court. They have also other areas where you'll be able to learn about all of the judicial judges and judicial candidates. So take the time, because a judge, I am the arbiter. You can see Judge Fry just ruled last week that Frank LaRosa, the Secretary of State, is permitted to have ballot boxes. They are not required to just be at the Board of Elections. They can have more ballot boxes. So having a judge, electing a judge is very important, because we make very important decisions about people's lives.
Yeah. On the ballot for judges, they're using the designation of whether you're a Republican or Democrat, but each party, or normally we endorse a judge. How do you want people to remember that you are the guy that they need to vote for?
I go to my website. Go to my website at davidyoungforjudge.com, and you'll find out as much as you can about me. And remember, in October and November, be young, stay young, vote young.
And you've been working so hard, all these years being a judge and running a campaign. So what do you do to stay young?
With the other two campaigns, I had two kids, and now that I have everyone back in my house, I have a lot of activity here.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show, Judge Young. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor, and I'm great and wonderful that what you're doing to educate and help the community.
Thank you. If you're watching the show right now and you want to contact Judge David Young, you can go on the website davidyoungforjudge.com. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope to be back next week for another edition of Legal Angle with Emmanuel the Law Olawale. Thank you.
All right, thank you.